Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. We are live. We should be live. Says the stream is streaming. It's starting. Says the stream health is green, though I'm sure that's subject to change. It's probably going to get worse and worse and worse as we continue along, as is sort of the progression in life. Things just get worse and worse and worse. Nothing stays good forever. Let me see. What the heck is going on over here? I just need to tell this thing to shut up. But anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's doing good. Hope everybody's ready for an awesome-ass live stream down there right below my head. Twitter, @TheNeedleDrop, Instagram, @Fantano, and Facebook.com/TheNeedleDrop. Follow your melon. Hit up your melon. Your melon is here. Get used to it. I'm going to be taking questions from you guys. I'm going to be taking super chats from you guys, and hopefully, like a few weeks ago, we have another solid, sexy, sensual Q&A live stream. Going to be asking questions about, you know, anything and everything that you guys sort of throw at me, which I can catch either in the live chat or, you know, probably most likely in a super chat. And, you know, of course, you know, some shout outs to you guys as well. And, you know, that's that should be it. That's the plan. That is the plan for this stream. Let me move my big melon head over, and let me see if the plan I have devised here can sort of work out. What do we have over here? Let me see. The plan that I have worked out, where I basically have like this portion of the page kind of featuring. It's probably not going to work out, but you know, we're going to try our best. We're going to do our best. Because your melon is like a total mess over here. Shout out to Heroic Buffalo 4. He says, "What is a super chat?" You're doing it, dude. You're doing it. You're there. Also, oh wait, hold on. Let's move over here. Let's get the live chat depicted over here, because the live chat is just like pure insanity. Let's see. Thoughts on the new Caro Caro Bonito single? I have not heard it. However, that single, without question, that single is going to be in the next Best Worst Tracks update. So you don't even got to think about it. You don't even got to worry about it. That single is going to be in that update. And hopefully it's good. I mean, Caro Caro Bonito, I think they're one of the best groups out there right now. I think they're incredibly fun. I think they're incredibly creative. I think they have a lot of personality. And, you know, shout out to Mike Seatown. He says they're dumb anime meme music. I don't agree. But we still love Mike Seatown here at the Needle Drop. Don't get it twisted. We love our Mike Seatown. Shout out to Mike Seatown. Hit up that guy's YouTube channel. All right. Next, let's talk to Dan Mann 555555555. He says, "Why, in your opinion, is Will Smith's Wild Wild West an underrated classic track?" Great question, Dan Mann. Why is it an underrated classic track? You know, it's really all of Will Smith's giggling ha-has, you know. That's really what it comes down to. Those heartwarming laughs that he puts into his songs. No other rapper pulls it off. No other rapper does it quite as well as Will Smith does. And, you know, unfortunately, the rap game, the ad-lib game is really bad right now. The ad-lib game, I'm not going to lie, it's trash. And if Will Smith were here doing those heartwarming laughs in between his bars, it would be a totally different rap game. It would be totally different. Elijah Sly says, "What makes for a great flow within an album, and what are some prime examples? Where is the sweet spot between too uniform and too scattershot?" Good question. I think things to take into account when, you know, dealing with flow on an album is mostly, you know, what is the overall variety of emotions and sounds amongst the entire track list, and then on top of that, how does each track sound next to each other? You know, do they segue into each other well? Do the emotions complement each other? Does the flow of the album have emotional highs, emotional lows, a strong introduction, a strong outro? You know, is sort of the start of the record have kind of a different flavor or vibe than the end of the record? I don't think there's one right way to flow an album. I don't think there's one perfect way to flow an album. You know, I certainly think To Pimp a Butterfly has a very good flow. Good Kid, Mad City has a very good flow, you know, for just two examples that are very recent that you guys are most likely familiar with. You know, as far as classic stuff, like The Wall has a really great flow to it. You know, it's almost like listening to a movie. It's kind of very cinematic in the way that it moves. And, you know, hopefully that kind of answers your question. Those are some kind of ideas that bump around in my head when I'm thinking of good flow. I have listened to the Stone Roses. Have not listened to the Cribs, though. Alex Brindle asks. Thank you for that super chat and that question, though. And how do I feel about Poppy's Let's Make a Video song? I love it. And I really actually like the direction that Poppy is taking her new stuff in. You know, sort of this very catchy, very straightforward pop music, you know, with like a touch of rock in there occasionally. And, you know, really kind of diving into internet culture, you know, an online culture with her music. I love kind of seeing her embrace that because her music, her sound exists so deeply within that. And it's just kind of great to kind of see her music finally reflecting it. I was actually able to ask her when I met her and Titanic Sinclair in LA about it a little bit, you know, this past week. And, you know, they had some interesting things to say that, you know, hopefully maybe I can bring up in a future review or something like that when I talk about her stuff when she does drop this album that I hear is coming out this year. I hear it's coming out this year. Hey, Melon Boy, says David Stern. What are my thoughts on Locks and Chatterbox? Have I listened to him before? I have not, but thank you for the support and thank you for the super chat, David. Hopefully in the future I can answer this question after having heard him. I saw another super chat where somebody sent in and asked me, why do I hate or why do I dislike Kid Cudi? Why do I dislike Kid Cudi? Good question. Good question. Why do I like this? Let me rephrase that. Why do I dislike Kid Cudi? Good question. Hopefully I can answer it right here for you. Basically, it all comes down to sound and it all comes down to his music and it all comes down to what he does on his albums, honestly, because his first two records are not that bad. I was kind of mild on his second record, which, you know, there is a review for on my YouTube channel. But, you know, when he came out with his debut, he was like a really unique and a really really bold artist who kind of had a sound and a style and a vibe. You know, his first record is pretty ambitious as well. And I just think it kind of went downhill from there. You know, I feel like he is an artist that as he got more popular, took criticism less and less and less and, you know, kind of in a really unhealthy way. And, I don't know, man. I mean, my issues with Kid Cudi begin and end at his music. You know, I don't really know anything about the guy personally. In fact, every single time I see the guy in a, you know, like a live context or, you know, just in person, you know, dealing with other people on the internet or sometimes in interviews, he seems like a nice guy, you know. Don't really have anything against the guy personally. Shout out to Craig. Thank you very much. We have another super chat over here. What do I think of Mac DeMarco as an artist? Love your videos. Thank you very much. Mac DeMarco as an artist, I mean, seems like a cool guy. I like a lot of his stuff. You know, like I said in my recent video where I kind of changed my mind on some records, you know, 2 definitely grew on me. You know, I think he has a lot of good stuff to offer artistically, and I don't know what else to say. You know, I think he's a good artist. I think he's an artist to watch. I think he's a creative guy with a lot of personality and a good sense of humor too. Yo, Big Scary Volcano. Thanks for reviewing Clarence Clarity's Know Now. I love that album. Such a great album, Clarence Clarity Know Now. Check out that freaking album if you haven't already. Bring more attention to him. Am I excited to hear his new stuff? Hell yes, I am. Hell yes, I'm excited to hear his new stuff. And I'm excited to hear that he's kind of going in a different direction too, so... display the Fantussie. I love the Fantussie. Show us how to care for the Fantussie. Blessings to your dad, and may we bow our heads and pray that to the Fantussie will stay healthy, wealthy, and wise. Thank you very much, Richard. Bless that Fantussie. Loved your No Jumper interview, man. Thank you very much. It was a very fun interview to do. I think Adam and I could have done a little bit better if it was a little earlier. It was really late at night when we did that interview, and when I left, it was like 2 a.m. or something. The Satanist Behemoth, by Behemoth, is it still a 10 out of 10? It's still a 10 out of 10 for me. Do I think black metal is the main face of metal? By the way, Behemoth announced working on a new project. New Behemoth album would be awesome. Do I think it's the face of metal right now? I don't know about that. I mean, you know, I think there are other genres of metal that definitely have more visibility than black metal right now. But you know, I still think the album is a great record, and I still think black metal has a lot of potential and has a lot of gas in the tank. Just kind of looking forward to seeing where it goes into the future. Let's see. Which one is the least worst, lo-fi hip hop or vaporwave? The least worst, I guess it sort of depends on how wide you sort of cast the umbrella of lo-fi hip hop. You know what I mean? Lo-fi hip hop, I think, has a lot of potential, and there are a lot of great artists that are in hip hop that make lo-fi music. Are there more lo-fi hip hop classics or hip hop albums that are lo-fi that, I don't know, than there are vaporwave classics? I'm just really not sure. I'm not entirely sure what to say about that as a whole. I guess lo-fi hip hop is better, but I mean, you know, I think that's only because vaporwave has only been around for a short amount of time. I mean, give vaporwave some time and maybe, you know, they'll dish out some more classic records and some more, you know, records that 15, 20 years down the road, we're going to be like, whoa, those are some great albums. And that was an important time for music. Would I ever consider a Ween review for Classics Week? Probably. Thank you very much, Cooper, for asking that question. For Classics Week, I may consider a Ween review. So I want to know what you actually think about the Pierce the Veil album from last year. I was vague in my Why You Know review. Trust me, I hate it too, and it's pronounced Ezekiel. Thank you very much, Ezekiel. I don't know, honestly, like I barely remember anything about it right now. I remembered I didn't like it, you know, and when I really don't like something that much and I just kind of like casually glance over it, I just kind of make it my business not to remember anything about it. So honestly, I don't like it. I think it bad, and I'm probably never going to listen to it ever again, to be quite honest. Opinions on Pet Sounds and the Beach Boys in general. Have I classic reviewed that? I should fucking classic review that shit. Why have I not done that yet? I think Pet Sounds is great. Awesome record. Just like production for that era of time in pop music and rock music, I don't think it gets more perfect. Like, it's so fantastic. It's so beautiful to listen to. The performances are great. You know, also look up the Wrecking Crew. You know, look at that documentary about them, and you know, sort of what they did on that album was amazing, and sort of the life that they lived and the way that they contributed to music and sort of the music industry and the way that they did is like actually a really amazing kind of crazy story. But Pet Sounds, excellent. Love that record. Beach Boys, I mean, they have a lot of, you know, classics under their belts that you can't really deny, either in the, you know, straight pop genre or the surf rock genre. I mean, of course, you know, they have their rough spots. I like to pretend Kokomo doesn't exist, but, you know, and anything from that era of Beach Boys history. But, you know, they've got a lot of great stuff, you know, undeniably a legendary band. Most unlikely band you found yourself getting into? Good question. That I found myself getting into, unlikely band. I'm trying to think of a group that, I don't know, I think still to this day, you know, honestly, a really unlikely thing that I think I'm into is just Neil Ciceriga's music. You know, I love that dude's mashups. I think he's amazing. I think he's kind of a borderline genius. But I mean, when you listen to his music on the surface, it's just kind of like, you know, like I feel like I shouldn't be taking this as seriously as I do because it's just like it's so comedic, it's so silly, you know, but like there's something about his music that I'm just drawn to and I can't deny. How do you get enough vitamin B12 into your diet? I just take a vitamin B12 supplement like once a day or once every other day, you know, just like a quick pill, you know, that has like a ton of vitamin B12 in it. That's pretty much how I do it. And there are a lot of vitamin B12 fortified foods. Asks Avery over here, so shout out to him. That's pretty much how I get my B12. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. What is my favorite non-English artist album? I was, you know, personally, I don't have a hard time, you know, enjoying music that's not in English. You know, it's not like, I guess it depends on the genre though. Like there's a lot of like non-English hip hop that I guess I have a hard time listening to because things like melody and hooks aren't, you know, as, at least a melodic hook aren't as much of a priority. You know, but as far as like pop music and rock music, you know, there isn't like, a whole lot of like non-English music that I can't enjoy. However, I don't really like list out my favorite artists as like, oh, this is my favorite non-English artist, you know? Personally, I can't really say as of right now what my favorite non-English artist is because honestly, again, it's like I don't really list out my favorite artists like that. I don't really think about it in those terms, you know, but I mean, there are records like, for example, the new Ibibio Sound Machine has tons of songs that aren't in English. They're in the Ibibio language, and that's probably my favorite record right now as far as like a non-English record from this year. It's titled Uyai, U-Y-A-I, I believe it's spelled. Don't quote me on that because I can't spell for shit. But it's an excellent record. It's going to be in my forthcoming best and favorite albums of the year so far video that's going to be dropping this weekend. And yeah, that's probably my favorite non-English record right now. Hey, Melon Man, I remember you saying once that you like Black Mirror. I was wondering what was your favorite, one of your favorite episodes. Oh, man. Black Mirror. I love the episode where everybody is like on this app where they're like interacting with each other and rating each other and like giving each other 5 stars and stuff. And if you have a certain amount of stars, like, you can get into an apartment, or if you have 2 little stars, like you can't rent a car, or you can't get on a plane or something. Love that episode because that's just like so fucked up. And probably the way that we're headed if we allow social media to run things in the way that it does. Hello, my most beloved Melon. Love your work. What is your opinion on hidden tracks? Like at the end of an album, it's kind of just a dead practice. There's really no use for it anymore. It was kind of cute back in the day. And, I used to have some pretty favorite hidden tracks, like when I was a teenager or when I was like, in college. But now it's just like so dead. It's just so gone. And honestly, I don't really miss it because I feel like the whole MP3, the whole iTunes age, all that jazz kind of eliminated the purpose for a hidden track. You don't have to sit there and wait for it. You don't have to like, scroll with your CD player and just like struggle to get to the exact moment when the track starts, or be sitting there waiting like a jackass for it to begin. You just kind of like freaking just skip to the end of the thing and you hear the hidden track. So, I mean, they're basically kind of silly at this point, but it was kind of cute when it was kind of cute when they were around and they were relevant and, they existed. Sending love from Ontario, says Park. Can you listen to my album on Spotify? It's really good. I promise. Search Park from CC. I will search it up. And I don't know. I guess I'll see if that's in fact true. You might be lying, but hopefully you're not. Tamir Gore says, dude, you turned me on to my favorite band, Envy. Would love to hear you talk maybe about your favorite output from them. Would you ever consider doing a Screamo Classics from them, Screamo Classic review? I don't know. I mean, if that was going to do a Screamo record, there might be some other records that like I might pick first. But Envy's a pretty solid band. As far as like favorites, I mean, most stuff they put out in the 2000s was fantastic. I mean, I'm not like that into a lot of their newer stuff, but they have some really solid records from the 2000s that like, if you're into Screamo, and also, they have some really epic instrumentation on their stuff too. Like post-rock fans loved their shit, 10 years ago as well. So, they weren't just limited to, Screamo fans either. They had a bit of a crossover appeal in the underground that I think few bands in the Screamo genre did, which is partially what made them so great. Let's see. Next question comes in from Enthused Leppy. Can I think of any albums or artists that were widely praised and critically at the time of their release, but have had their status revised downward? Not that I could really think of, because honestly, like back then, I feel like to know that you have to kind of be around then, Certainly there are records that I remember from when I was a kid that were like really popular, like grunge or alternative rock records or bands that like, for example, like the band Bush. Like when I was a kid, like, a lot of my friends who were into alternative rock, loved Bush. Bush was great. Machine Head, great song. But the thing is like, in retrospect, Bush has not Bush has not looked all that good. Like a lot of people have kind of forgotten about Bush, and Bush has not sort of remained one of the most relevant bands in the alternative rock genre, in the grunge genre. Certainly bands like Nirvana have fared much better. So, I'm just kind of sitting here thinking like about like what actually has sort of withstood the test of time. Again, I don't know much about like the reviews around that time because I was like 12 or 13 or something, but I remember at the time, there were certainly a lot of bands back then that, had a lot of hype, had a lot of push behind them, were all over the radio. Like Three Doors Down is another band, but, sort of in retrospect, everybody's just kind of like, oh, who cares about that band anymore? But, that's I guess those are my thoughts. Okay, this $10 could have bought me a Moe's burrito. Moe's burritos are pretty decent, so I guess that's a pretty good thing to tell me. But my other question poofed before you could read it. Do I think Death Grips is a good influence for a high schooler? Honestly, like if you're a dark, edgy high schooler, who just kind of needs a good outlet. You know, there's certainly worse things that you could be doing than listening to Death Grips. You know, would I rather you be listening to Death Grips than punching people, or, you know, doing hard drugs, or stabbing people? Sure. You know, listen to as much Death Grips as you want. You know, I personally don't think music is dangerous or is necessarily a bad influence. So, you know, just listen to music, and just understand that when you're listening to music, it's entertainment. It's not for you to copy. It's not for you to redo or rehash or whatever. It's just kind of for you to listen to and just kind of enjoy, you know? But yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Garrett says, what are my thoughts on Dream Theater Metropolis Part 2? Scenes from a Memory. It's my favorite album of all time. Dream Theater, I've never been a big fan, but I will admit that is one of their better records. You know, it's definitely one of those modern prog records that, in my opinion, isn't too glitzy, isn't too flashy, and for a Dream Theater album, it's not too overdone. I mean, you know, some of their more recent stuff, I think, is the definition of overdone, is the definition of like, hey, I think you're I think you're doing a little too much. You know, that Dream Theater album, for example, you know, excellent playing, excellent production, and it's manageable. You know, it's like the playing is great, but it's to the point. You know, if you were going to sort of do a bit of a foray into Dream Theater's discography, no question, you would probably want to start there. But yeah, you know, that's definitely one of the records of theirs that I could enjoy. You know, but I'll leave it at that. What do you think? Do you think there are any qualifications to review music on YouTube? Fuck no. I just started reviewing music on YouTube and nobody said, well, what are your qualifications? I didn't have no qualifications. I just fucking started. So if you want to review music on YouTube, fucking just review music on YouTube. I guess, you know, you got to be kind of careful, because when I was starting out, there wasn't really a following for it. And now that there is, if you come out and you don't know what you're talking about, you could really make an ass of yourself early on. But, you know, honestly, I think the audience is pretty understanding if you just kind of, you know, learn what you need to learn and take the lumps that you need to take in order to get to where you need to go, and just be consistent in terms of quality, be consistent in terms of output, and, you know, you'll get somewhere. You know, you will make some headway. You know, and also you got to concentrate and think about finding your voice too. You know, like, what is your delivery? What is your angle? What are you going to bring to the table that no other reviewer on YouTube is? Mateus Murozaki asks me, did I hear about Melody Prochet? Horrible stuff. No, I have not. Also, would I consider reviewing some Sonic Youth for Classics Week? Probably. You know, Sonic Youth would definitely be a very worthy Classics recipient, you know, consideration. Hey, Melon, been a fan of the channel for a while this year. I have disagreed with you a lot, but it's all good. Just wondering what Matt Tong band... what Matt Tong band you like more than early Block Party or Algiers? Honestly, I can't say. Yeah, honestly, I can't say. I mean, thank you for, you know, supporting the channel, but really, I don't think I have like Matt's entire discography off the top of my head to just be like, oh, okay, you know, I'm gonna here's my favorite. So I mean, honestly, again, I can't really say, so I apologize. But, you know, again, thank you for the support. Tony Fan Teeth Man, can you go into a bit of detail on your listening setup, kind of headphones, amp? My amplifier and my listening setup, unfortunately, are like top secret right now. I just have to kind of, you know, that's just my thing right now. But I'm still on the AKGs. I have been using some Koss Studio headphones recently, and still my Porta Pros, and I've been enjoying those. But, you know, and I'm still on my Technics Quartz turntable, and I have recently picked up an Ortofon Blue stylus and needle cartridge, which actually, honestly, it's really kind of made the clarity of my records really pop, and I'm really kind of happy that I got off of the Shure DJ cartridges that I had been using and got onto that Ortofon. ORTO, I think it's FON. You know, the cartridges are a little spendy, but it's a great cartridge. It's got a great crisp sound to it. That I really like a lot. It's really kind of like, you know, made some of my favorite records pop, a nice brightness to it. What is my favorite Pink Floyd album? Has to be Animals. And thank you very much, Brendan Keane, for supporting the channel. Moving on. I know I have a lot of super chats to get through. I apologize. I'm not getting to all of them. Everyone is bitching in chat about your thoughts on Who Dat Boy. If I haven't listened to it, I have listened to it. I do like it quite a bit. I think it's one of Tyler's best singles that he's ever dropped. And I guess finer details about it will come out in my best and worst tracks video this weekend. But I do think it's really good. And the instrumental's like pretty impressed with the instrumental. It goes fucking hard. It goes hard. You should check out Toxic Minds by Sith Lord. It was made by one of my favorite streamers. Oh, I missed you. Please review Father by Brett Keane. Father by Brett Keane is a terrible song. Thank you, TJ's brother. You know, I'll save that. I'll screenshot that and maybe get around to doing a review of that down the road later. Thank you very much. Moving on from there. Video Games McGee, wow, that's a great name, sent you a Scatman John song years ago when he was a jazz musician, John Larkin, and you said every part of the song is fire before the bad Europop. Thoughts on compromising vision for popularity? You know, I think it's something that back in the day was kind of a requirement in order to stay relevant. These days, I think less so. I think the internet allows, you know, more open sort of artistic expression, and fans are willing to sort of follow artists down like some really experimental and strange rabbit holes that maybe not that maybe would not have been marketed back in the day, because, you know, there would have been some kind of a you know, some kind of exec with their finger in the pie just being like, oh yeah, I don't know if we can really do this. These days it just kind of seems like anything and everything is allowed. Like it's just like a complete fucking shit show, you know, in some regards. You know, again, that is kind of a double-edged sword. You know, some awful albums have come out of that. You know, but it's sort of cool to hear so many different musicians being so free and being so able to just kind of experiment and venture into whatever territory they want to. Hey, you big sexy melon hunk. I've been a fan for a long time. Do you think I'll ever do a classics review of the new Members Only 3 album? I'm not sure, but thank you for supporting the channel. Paramore's After Laughter best single. I think it's Hard Times. It's got to be Hard Times, honestly. To be completely honest, it's got to be Hard Times. What is my opinion on System of a Down? Awesome band. Best band out of that whole nu metal era, in my opinion, you know, maybe with the exception of Tool, though I consider them kind of more of a prog metal band. And, you know, definitely underappreciated by the millennial generation, in my opinion. Not enough millennials respecting System of a Down. What do I think of the Replacements? Great band, classic band. Can't really question their status. I mean, you know, they're there for a reason. What is Sasquatch Fever, and what can we do to stop it? Asks Sasquatch Fever and Sons. I'm not really sure, but hopefully this menace can be put to rest. And, you know, we can all put our children to bed at night having not to worry about Sasquatch Fever. Classics review for Beatles, Pink Floyd, Tool, Wilco, or Mastodon. Beatles and Pink Floyd, yes, definitely. Maybe Tool. I kind of envision this dream in my head where I would just do only like British invasion bands for like a full classics week, and you know, that's maybe still a possibility. I guess we'll kind of see. And what is the most depressing album you can think of off the top of your head? I mean, fuck. I mean, it's definitely the new Mount Erie album. A Crow Looked at Me. I mean, that's not even a question. You know, certainly there were probably like some other albums I would have brought up before that. You know, I find some depressive black metal very depressing. I find some of Godspeed's music very depressing. I find some of Elliott Smith's music very depressing, or Daniel Johnston, you know, something that really kind of just stabs you right in the heart. Some of the Mountain Goats early stuff too. You know, but that has all just been kind of blown out of the water by what Phil did on his new record, because I don't think an album's really kind of like ever hit me emotionally like that, which is, you know, one of the things to me that is so exciting about music, because there's always something new, there's always something different, there's always an artist taking a risk or some other kind of refreshing, you know, and different direction that things are going in. And, you know, while, again, you know, I appreciate the sorrow and the suffering that kind of went into that album, and, you know, I wish Phil all the best, and I wish him, you know, just kind of an emotional recovery, you know, past all of this. You know, he certainly did make a hell of a record. You know, you got to give him that. Will Best Teeth, will you release a cover of the Wu-Tang track Method Man as Melon Man? No plans on that right now, but you've planted the seed of creativity in my head, and you've made it a possibility by throwing the idea out there. Let's just see if it pans out. Am I a fan of Traffic? And if so, what is my favorite album from them? I am not well versed in their discography. I can't say. You can call me a pleb in the comments if you feel like I'm a pleb as a result of that. Real opinion on Radiohead? I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've given a real opinion on them in my best and worst Radiohead worst to best video. I mean, I think they're pretty seminal band, pretty seminal modern band. A lot of great records. Some of my favorite records of all time. Don't know what else to say. Loved the shit out of Moonshaped Pool. That album grows on me with each listen. I don't know what else to say. Getting okay. Modest Media is hitting me up. He's saying, Modest Media of Dead and Hip Hop fame. He's texting me. He says, I got to hit him up after the live stream. I'm going to do that shit. I'm going to hit him up. But that's my real opinion on Radiohead. Thanks for answering my questions on DP last night. Oh, no problem, dude. Thank you for supporting the channel. I would love to ask you many more, but I can't give you all of my monies. But you certainly did give me 5, and I do appreciate that. Sob Music. So shout out to Sob Music. Any love for Ufamamat? Great job with the channel. Keep it going. Yeah, I believe I've covered their music before. They're decent. You know, not one of my favorite bands of all time, but, you know, certainly a decent band. I don't really know what else to say about them. I mean, you know, they never really struck me as incredibly distinct, and I guess that's, you know, one thing I can kind of take away from them, but, you know, certainly not a bad group. Hi, Fandango. It's People Who Can Eat People's 10-year anniversary. Whoa! Ignoring that, haven't you liked a lot of AJJ's recent records? You haven't, what can I think of? Wait, what do you think of People Who Can Eat People? Yes, okay. Yeah, I haven't liked a lot of AJJ's recent stuff. However, People Who Can Eat People is an excellent album. Can't Maintain is an excellent album. I have that, and I have those two and Knife Man on vinyl. I think they're all great records. People Who Can Eat People, great songs, fiery performances. You're catching Andrew Jackson Jihad at a moment when they were super raw, you know, and I kind of love that rawness about them, but at that point in their career, but I understand that they had to kind of progress past it because, you know, not only because they're a very creative band, they're a very forward-thinking band, but also, you know, I feel like they kind of needed to separate themselves from the excuse me, I burped there, the gaggle of other, you know, sort of like folk punk bands that were around at that time that they were kind of competing with, you know, some of whom really sprouted up and were kind of, you know, straight ripping their style. Moving on from there, if I want some good reverby alternative rock, look up my friend's band JK Lago on Bandcamp. I will search that up after this, now that I have screenshotted that. What are my thoughts on Chris Webby, and will I ever review a project from him? Also, have you ever listened to Damien Rice? I recommend my favorite Faded Fantasy. You know, I'll address Chris Webby here. Chris Webby, you know, solid Connecticut rapper. You know, more on the poppier side of things. You know, I'm not particularly into his music and his lyrical vibe. You know, there isn't really anything in his music as far as lyrics that interests me or sort of speaks to me. Seems like a nice guy, seems like a talented dude, and seems like a passionate dude who has drive and vision, and you know, is like very consistent. You know, the dude does not let up. He's been at it for a while now. I respect his game, I respect his hustle, but you know, he's just like not really making music I'm all that, you know, sort of crazy about. And it's nothing personal against him. It's not like I'm reviewing tons of artists out here that sound exactly like Chris Webby, but I'm just ignoring him. You know, you guys know that I kind of sit on the more alternative side of things, and that's just kind of where I am. And that's obviously where Chris is not. But, you know, I respect the fact that he's doing what he does, you know, as consistently as he does it. Daniel Slapkoff asks, many people seem to say that Zappa is too technical to be able to relate to. If they listen to Zappa songs such as Watermelon and Easter Hay, would they think differently? I think there are a lot of Zappa songs that would probably change people's minds that, honestly, like, I don't find a lot of songs on Hot Rats all that difficult to listen to. I don't find a lot of songs off of his debut all that difficult to listen to. I don't find a lot of songs off of We're Only In It For The Money all that difficult to listen to. Like, some of his songs, while they're not technical, they're still very comedic and silly. Like My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama, I don't think that song's all that difficult to listen to. Like, sure, he has his weird, flashy, experimental stuff, but there are a lot of like funny Zappa songs. Like, actually on the record, Chic Your Booty, you know, like that's some of Zappa's most accessible work. You know, some of his most, I guess, the closest you could come to a mainstream Zappa album. You know, of course, like the sense of humor is super crude, but, you know, that's just kind of the vibe of the record. So it's not like there's not Zappa stuff out there that's accessible. I guess you just kind of have to have the patience to look for it or show it to somebody. Lately, it seems like the 90s are coming back in style. What do I think 90s style music will return? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, the 90s are back in style because every single time a decade becomes like 20 years old, all of a sudden that stuff that came out in that decade becomes nostalgic. It becomes the new wave of nostalgia. Happened in the 60s, happened in the 70s, happened in the 80s. It happened in the freaking 90s with that 70s show. Like in what other decade would you watch that 70s show other than the 90s? Each decade in the past has had a wave of nostalgia for the decade that came 10 to 20 years before it. Like Sha Na Na, look up Sha Na Na. Sha Na Na was, like a revivalist, kitschy, hokey kind of like, hey, we're bringing this back. Remember this? Like they were that kind of group, so it's like every generation, every decade has this nostalgia. I can't wait for next decade when all of a sudden the 2000s become nostalgic. What are we going to remember from the 2000s that was so culturally significant? Could I review WizKid's sound from the other side? Not a WizKid fan, and I can't say I'm all that interested in reviewing his stuff. But I will probably give it a shot if it does seem like there's something to it. Let's see, getting hit with a lot. Thank you very much for Partisan Capitalist for 50 knocks there. Melon, would I review Pavement for a Classics Week? Probably. Like that's actually probably one of the. I would say that's even a little more likely than Sonic Youth. Like they're a pretty seminal band. Have I listened to the Tragically Hip? Unfortunately, I haven't. But shout out from Canada over there from JB. Thank you very much. Logan asks, have I heard Infected Mushrooms converting vegetarians and converting vegetarians too? I have not listened to much Infected Mushroom, to be completely honest. That style of electronic music isn't entirely my bag. But now that I am conscious of those album titles, I'm actually kind of morbidly curious and am now screenshotting this because I will have to try that after this. Opinion on the Dixie Chicks? I mean, I kind of feel like their time has come and gone, but they seem nice. They seem like good players. And, I love the way that they kind of stood up against George Bush like that and sort of took that heat that they did for saying some real shit. My favorite poppy track right now is probably Computer Boy. Love that song. Moving on from there. Hey, Anthony, big fan of the channel. Not sure if you've talked about this before, but what are your thoughts on Unwound? I feel like I should be a huge fan of Unwound, but unfortunately I'm not. And not that they're a bad band. It's just that I don't feel like they stick out to me all that much. Like I understand the hype. I get the hype. I get that why people would like them, but I've never been particularly huge on Unwound, and I guess I'll just kind of leave it at that. I know you aren't the biggest fan of Lil Wayne's recent material, but what about his notable projects, Drought 2, Dedication 2, Carter 2 and 3? Carter 2 and 3, like back when I was in college, were the shit. I admit I was not as like heavy into his mixtape output around that time, but as far as like pop rap goes, like, those are some pretty catchy and like essential records. Like you couldn't escape from those songs. Those songs were everywhere. The Carter 3, I think, is definitely going to go down as like a pop rap classic. I understand that they're going to be fans of more lyrical hip hop and deeper hip hop that, that album is never, ever, 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 ever going to appeal to them. And I understand that's fair. But for the style of music Lil Wayne is making on that record, like it's a pretty genre defining album, and definitely like one of the bigger rap records of the 2000s. When will I review some face-ripping power violence like Pizza High 5 or X Brainiacs, or see if, I don't know. I'm just going to screenshot this and I'll give it a listen and I'll see. I'll give a listen to some face-ripping power violence. I do like stuff that rips my fucking face. 50 more knops for you. Thank you. What are my thoughts on Todd Thierry and his style of music? Todd, I don't think his last record was all that consistent, but I love the grooves. I love the kind of vintage feel. However, that new like cover single that he did of like that old new wave gem that was like super obscure. I love that song. I think it's a fantastic track. And I don't know. I mean, I think he has potential. I think he does some good stuff. So I'm definitely going to be looking forward to and probably reviewing his next record. Moving on from there, could I check your SoundCloud out? I don't know. You didn't even link it over here, dude. So I mean, can I just look up Sub Music and find it? I guess we'll find out. but don't give me all your money. You said you couldn't. What are my thoughts on Piero Scaruffi? I mean, he seems like a pretty passionate reviewer to, you know, be continuing in the way that he does, with the consistency that he does. You know, I respect him as a passionate music fan. I mean, there are some, you know, quotes and stuff that he has out there that are kind of memes that I guess I kind of agree with. I think he's like maybe a little bit more of a rockist than me. But you know, he certainly, in my opinion, has a place in the history of music criticism, and I think he's made some good picks. I think he's even like a tougher critic than I am, you know, to a degree. Which, I mean, I guess if you've been doing it as long as you've been doing it, you probably, you know, sort of become that. So that's just kind of a natural progression, most likely. But yeah, probably more of a rockist than me. I think a tougher critic than me. But you know, I respect the guy. You know, for his musical opinions, that is. I don't really know much about him outside of all of that. Moving on from there, what is my opinion on the Smiths? I mean, they're fine. Honestly, I've never been a huge Smiths fan, but, you know, I respect their place in music, and I think they have, you know, certainly have a classic sound. You know, I think they kind of maybe across the course of their discography leaned a little too hard on it, like, you know, across their discography, I personally would have liked to have seen just a bit more sonic progression, but, you know, classic band, can't deny their place in music history, and, you know, certainly one of the greatest to come out of the UK. Anthony, have I ever heard of Marcel or the trash wave genre? It's a Bandcamp thing. Oh no, I lost it. Well, off the top of my head, I have not heard of Marcel. Unless we're talking, I know one person named Marcel, but I don't think it's the Marcel we're talking about. Most of it is too out there for me, but the rest has got me hooked. I don't know. I'm going to give it a try. Trash wave sounds pretty interesting, I will admit. So I guess we're just going to leave it at that. Thoughts on Killing Joke? Classic band. Holy shit. Like, when you're talking about, like, post-punk and the early, like, days of sort of industrial stuff, like, Killing Joke is a must. Killing Joke is a must. And there's not really anything else you can say. Killing Joke is a must. The debut record is a must. And, you know, like, their later stuff, too. Like, a must. Okay. All right, I'll look up Scoob music then. Anthony, rank these three rappers in order from best to worst. Young Lean, Lil B, and Drake. Lil B is the best. Drake is the second best. Young Lean is the worst. And that's going to be it. And by the way, Wolf Sucks, the Tyler, the Creator album. I mean, I think it's okay. I don't think it sucks. Try number 3. You must have Frank Javc filtered or something. So have I listened to Light or Toe? Like the bands? I've listened to Toe. They're okay. I don't have Frank Javc filtered. I don't know what you're talking about. He seems, yeah, I really don't know what you're talking about. Listen to the Tragically Hip or some grade A 2000s Canadian alt rock with poetic lyrics. Okay. I'll save that. I'll put that in my pocket. Let's see. Favorite punk album, by the way. The band I recommend is pronounced J.K. Lego. Okay. Favorite punk bands or favorite punk albums? Probably Wires, Pink Flag, Dead Kennedys, Plastic Surgery Disasters, Fresh Fruit for Rotting Vegetables. Really almost like the whole Dead Kennedys discog. Rocket to Russia, even though I consider it more of a pop album. London Calling, you know, My War, awesome record. You know, are we talking about classic punk here? You know, like the old of the old, not like the 80s stuff. I mean, you know, when it got all hardcore and stuff. Obviously, freaking Crass's early work. Love that shit. You know, obviously, never mind the Bullocks and all that stuff. The Vibrators were great. Early Minor Threat, you know, even though that's 80s. I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, that's just what kind of pops up at the top of my head, but I have a huge collection of punk records. You know, Earth AD, I think Earth AD is great. Also, you know, Walk Among Us, great record. Those are some of my favorites. The Slits, Cut, even though it's a post-punk album. Have you ever listened to the Meat Bodies? I have not, and I guess I've been meaning to. So there we go. Have you ever listened to Tuxedo and Mayor Hawthorne or Dent May? Not a Dent May fan. Nice guy, though. And Tuxedo, it's okay. You know, Tuxedo's okay. Like, as far as, like, that synth funk revivalist stuff, I kind of like, you know, Chromeo a little bit more, personally. Would I review your band? I don't know. I mean, I'd have to try it and sort of see if it appealed to me. And I guess I'll save it there in my pocket. Hi from the UK. Can you check out my EP? I guess I could, but then I'll just sort of check it out and see if I could. Let's see. Why did you never review the reality show by Jasmine Sullivan? It's because I never heard it. I have no idea what that album is. So I didn't review it because I hadn't heard it. So I guess I apologize for that. I had never heard it. Moving on from there. Thoughts on Igor? Ugh, it's on my to-listen list. It's on my to-listen list. And not that I'm frustrated with you for bringing it up. I'm frustrated with myself for not trying it yet. It is on my calendar to listen to it. But you know, the stuff so far is okay. I'm just kind of waiting to see if this new record kind of blows me away and really grabs my attention. Favorite Tom Waits album other than Rain Dogs? Good question. A best to worst on, or worst to best on Tom Waits would be really long. However, I think I could do it. I would just need the time. However, I don't have the time right now because I'm working on a MF Doom worst to best. And favorite, aside from Rain Dogs, is probably Bone Machine. Probably Bone Machine. Probably that Bone Machine. Let's see. All right, let's... I know I'm missing some. I don't want to miss them. No, I guess I'm doing my job. Let's see. Can I talk about Tool for a bit, please? Favorite album, classics. Excited for a new album. Opinion on Maynard. Favorite album, probably Anemia. And I think they get, you know, some unfair shit. I mean, I get that some of their fans are pretentious, but you know, I think they're a great band. They had some great tracks back when I was a kid that I thought were fantastic. You know, they make music, I think, that was a lot deeper than a lot of their contemporaries, and that's why they have sort of withstood the test of time. You know, again, I think they get a lot of unfair shit. Maynard, I respect the guy as a musical eccentric. You know, I'm just kind of waiting for a new goddamn album. I don't know what's taken so long. You know, why are we having to wait this long? Because, you know, certainly, like, I don't know. I feel like it just shouldn't take this long. To me, at least, you know, I understand if a band gives it up because they're like, hey, you know, there's not enough here in the gas tank to keep going. But to me, at least sounded like there was at least another record there. It sounded like there was another record there. Favorite Scandinavian black metal band? I don't know. I probably got to say like Dark Throne or something, or like Ulver or something. Or Mayhem, probably Mayhem. Are we talking about like the Nordic area? I hope I'm not fucking that up and looking like a moron. Do I think there's a hierarchy to musical genres? Are some genres intrinsically superior? I wouldn't say so. I mean, I guess there is a to degree. You know, I guess you could say jazz overall is certainly intrinsically better and more inspired than crunkcore. You know, but, you know, at that point, you're just kind of like taking a giant genre with many subgenres and sort of, you know, having it battle it out against a tiny little obscure subgenre. You know what I mean? Like, do I inherently think jazz is better than rock, or is that better than hip hop, or is that better than all electronic music, or is that better than all pop music? Not really, personally. I think it's really all kind of relative in that regard. Not a fan of country, so in your opinion, are there any good country albums? Fuck yes, there are good country albums. Check out fucking Johnny Cash. Check out Merle Haggard. Check out David Allan Coe. You know, check out fucking Hank Williams. Hank Williams III, if you want to listen to something newer and edgier. Yes, there are good country albums. Are you kidding me? Go on Rate Your Music, look up country, and just try out all of the albums that are rated the highest as country music, and you will be doing yourself a favor. What do I think of Fishmans and their rise in popularity on Rate Your Music? I don't know. I have not followed that at all, so I would have to go look into that. Are there any EDM songs with guitar solo drops? I really have no idea. And how did you meet Drunken Peasants? Personally, I have not met them any. I've not met any of them in person, so I don't know them. I haven't met them in person. But if they do a New York meetup, I probably will go out there. You know, however, I know TJ because I've watched his content for a while, but I don't know him. You know, we've conversed online here and there. I think it was actually Ben who reached out to me because he knew that We had like some similar music tastes or something, and I think he wanted to have me on the show because, you know, I had a following on my YouTube channel. And him and I have kind of like, you know, had some talks about punk and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know many EDM songs with guitar solo drops. So I'm just going to have to leave it at that. I apologize. Am I going to review Richard Dawson album Peasant? It's actually on my to-listen list, so, you know, hopefully I'm going to get around to that. It is on my to-listen list, and from what I have heard so far, it sounds like a great epic record. Ever listen to Candy Claws, related project sound of series? Unfortunately, I have not, so I can't speak on that. But yes, Jeremiah, I am so hyped for a new goddamn Igloo Ghost album. I am so hyped for a new Igloo Ghost album. Let's see. Hey, Anthony, huge fan of the show here. Been meaning to ask ever since you shared his album, Dangerous Days, but what do you think about Perturbator and the synthwave scene in general? A lot of it just kind of seems like, to me, it's repeating a lot of ideas. It's not really striking me as all that novel or all that refreshing or all that interesting. But I do understand, you know, if you are kind of looking for that hit of nostalgia and you are really kind of into that sound and that style, like there's certainly an endless sea of albums to sort of chase after, you know, just kind of like the 80s revivalism, the groovy synthy funk stuff. Like I love a lot of that stuff that came out back, you know, in the 80s, and kind of the punchy house sounds that they've kind of revived it with now are certainly a cool addition. A lot of it just kind of strikes me as like soundtrack music, which is not necessarily a bad thing. You know, it's just kind of, when I listen to it, I feel like I should be watching something or doing something else. You know, it is a nice sound, and it is very funky, and it is very cool. And I love that there's so many artists out there putting so much passion into it. You know, but it's not one of my favorite things in the world. It's not like a sound I'm like living or dying for or anything like that. Good day, Melon. Just wanted to let you know I love the second channel. The meme stuff is top notch. Please do more life advice stuff. I will. Also, it'd be great to see you on H3H3 or Rogan. Dude, I would fucking like jump off a bridge to be on Joe Rogan. No, I probably wouldn't do that, but it would be very fun to be on Joe Rogan. Although I have no idea what he would even ask me about, or I have no idea why he would even be interested in talking to me. I don't really think I would be his vibe, or he would have any questions to ask, or even care about anything that I thought or said. Can I talk about Suicide Self-Titled? Suicide Self-Titled is an amazing album. Amazing album. Crazy record. Groundbreaking record. Insane album. Intense album. And a fucked up album, too. One of the more messed up albums you'll ever subject yourself to. Suicide Self-Titled. If you have not listened to that album, do yourself a favor and listen to that record, because it's a dark-ass album. And a synth punk essential. Moving on from there. Thank you very much for that. Oops. Anthony, have I ever thought about reviewing classical music on your channel? Yes, but I don't feel like I'm expert enough in any of it to really comment, though I do enjoy some of it. Hey, Antoine Fantoine, what are your favorite sludge metal? What is your favorite sludge metal band, and why? I mean, right now, my favorite sludge metal band is probably either like, you know, some early Mastodon stuff or High on Fire. I don't really think there are a lot of sludge metal bands out there that have been as like long-term consistent, like consistently great long-term as High on Fire. Yeah, long-term consistently great as High on Fire, in my opinion. You know, obviously there are some other, you know, I'm trying to think of, there's one that I want to bring up that I don't want to not mention or not sort of shout out here. I mean, obviously the Melvins are a pretty, you know, fantastic sludge metal band. Lots of great records back out in the day, but I feel like they don't have as many sort of like refreshing ideas in the tank around this time. And Neurosis, and I wanted to mention ISIS because a lot of people love ISIS. I'm not particularly a huge ISIS fan, but, you know, ISIS is definitely a sludge metal essential. The new Preservation Jazz Hall album William is asking about over here. I think it's pretty good too. I think it's kind of short. You know, it's a little on the short side. The first track is a little underwhelming. I do think it's very good. I have a copy of it myself. I think I was just going to do a quickie review of it because there's not a whole lot to say about it. You know, they do a really cool kind of foray into the whole Latin jazz thing. And I like that. They do a good job. I respect that. And I don't know, just kind of looking forward to seeing more work from them that sounds a little bit modern, a little more modern in the future. Favorite upcoming artist? Probably Clarence Clarity right now. And Idols. Clarence Clarity and Idols. IDLES, great album out called Brutalism. Probably one of my new favorite bands. Opinion on Genesis. Genesis, classic progressive rock band. I don't really know what else I could say about them that hasn't been said a million times. I mean, I think they're pretty good. Not one of my favorite prog rock bands. You know, obviously King Crimson, Pink Floyd, Gentle Giant. You know, if I consider a lot of jazz rock, progressive rock too. You know, a band like Mahavishnu Orchestra, you know, Frank Zappa. There are a lot of progressive artists that, you know, I sort of prefer a little bit more than Genesis, but you know, you can't hate on Genesis. Favorite Animal Collective record? For a long time, I used to say Sung Tongs, although I feel like I would have to re-listen to their discography to kind of get a, because I mean that was like when I started my channel. Like I feel like I would have to re-listen back to everything to kind of like really get a grip, because you know, certainly like Strawberry Jam is a more fiery record, and honestly, it's I think Meriwether Post Pavilion got a lot of unfair initial shit for being as poppy as it did, for being as poppy as it was. You know, it is a pretty incredible record. Bubblin' Panda says, keep up the good work. Thank you, Bubblin' Panda. I appreciate your bubbles and your panda-ness. Favorite song on To Pimp a Butterfly? Probably Wesley's Theory or All Right. Those are pretty fantastic. Also, can't deny this dick ain't free. Also, I love the way they revised I on that album. It's such a good version of that song. Do I think do I think album theme / consistency is becoming less important now that listeners can just pick and choose the singles that they like for their playlists? Yes and no. I think it sort of depends on sort of where the artist is in sort of the grander scheme of music. Like, you know, there are tons of albums out there like To Pimp a Butterfly, you know, new Swans album, Death Grips Records, the new Father John Misty album, obviously the new Mount Erie album. Like I could list albums forever that are newer albums that have incredible amount of theme, consistency to them, you know, maybe even a concept to them. But if you're talking about an artist like Katy Perry, she probably doesn't give that much thought to how her album sounds overall. If you're talking about, you know, some kind of top 40 pop artist like Meghan Trainor, she probably doesn't think about that shit. So I mean, it matters less, but only within a certain section of music. You could, you know, cherry pick all these underground artists and say, whoa, look at how much theme and consistency matters. You know, it really sort of depends on where you are and what your audience is and what you're trying to communicate to them. You should check out Girl Ray, a new UK indie pop band with some great singles and an album dropping this year. Okay, I will screenshot this and try that out. Thank you, 95M Rob, Mr. Rob. Thoughts on Good Apollo, I'm Burning Star, number 4 from Fear of the... Coheed and Cambria? No, not a Coheed and Cambria guy. Cannot stand the vocals. They just sort of like flirt with being progressive when I don't really think their music is all that progressive at all. I'm not a Coheed and Cambria guy. Nope. That is one band that I'm just like, not for me. Never enjoyed one of their albums. And, you know, and that's been since like, you know, they've been a thing since I was in college, you know, and probably even before. And I've never enjoyed their stuff. It's just such a turnoff. Tell me what I think about Liquid Swords. Where does it rank in Wu-Tang solo records? I mean, I think it's amazing. It's an excellent record. And as far as like all Wu-Tang solo works, it's definitely top 5. It's definitely top 5, which, you know, don't take that as a diss, you know, because there are a lot of Wu-Tang solo albums. But it's unquestionably in the top 5 of all Wu-Tang solo records. Have I listened to Carly Rae Jepsen's album Emotion since I reviewed it? I haven't listened to it this year, but during the year that I had reviewed it, I had given it, you know, multiple listens. But admittedly, I have not listened to it this year, and I still feel like it's a 7. Oh man, Squeege Swall says, stunt on these hoes. Oh man. Wow. Mateo Welch sent in a $2 super chat and asks, What do I think of Anderson .Paak? I think he's a very talented, multi-talented, versatile artist who we're going to be seeing for a long time to come. Does not seem like Anderson .Paak is going anywhere anytime soon. And I think, you know, he's only going to grow from here because he has so many tools in the belt. So shout out to Anderson .Paak. You know, consistency and versatility, you know, I think is sort of the key to longevity. And Anderson .Paak has that. Thoughts on Mild High Club? I was just listening to them today. Titanic Sinclair had recommended Mild High Club to me, and it was like some pretty chill, like, you know, kind of psyche, kind of Mac DeMarco-y, like very chill, laid back jams. You know, pretty sweet on the ears. It's actually pretty funny that you asked me this now, because if you had asked me this like 5 days ago, I would have been like, who? What? So, you know, I was just listening to last year's album that they put out today. And, you know, it's okay. It's fun. You know, it didn't like really stick with me, but, you know, a lot of the synths and production on there are pretty sweet. Sweet on the ears. Opinion on Woodstock by Portugal the Man. I'm actually putting out a quickie review of that album tomorrow, so be looking out for that. MF Doom, best to worst, when? I will tell you guys when. I have my calendar over here. It says over here I have to put out that video on the 15th. So you can expect that video on the 15th of July. That's when that video is coming out. I have to finish writing another part of it very soon, but that is when that video is coming out, on the 15th of July. Let's see. How many records do I think Drake has left in him? Probably a lot. I don't think Drake's going anywhere for a while, honestly. Hey, Melon, thanks for all the content. Thoughts on the Blood Brothers? Ugh. Not enough people know and understand and respect the Blood Brothers. They had 3 great records, 3 really good albums under their belt. And Crimes is underrated. Crimes is a great album. And caught them live once with Against Me back in the day. Such a good show. And excellent band. Excellent band. You know, obviously I didn't like, you know, what they were doing after Crimes all that much, but I mean, you know, really good band. Stressing the weight of Tragically Hip to... Oh, my God. Okay. All right. I get it, guys. I will listen to the band Tragically Hip. Okay? I get that they're the biggest thing to come out of Canada. I will listen to Tragically Hip. You could take this live stream. You could cut this chunk out. You could make a meme out of it and plaster it all over the internet and YouTube. Anthony Fantano will listen to Tragically Hip. Hit me up tomorrow on Twitter and be like, Anthony, have you listened to that Tragically Hip? And I'll say, yes, I've listened to Tragically Hip. And I got to tell you that I see the hype. I get the hype. I get it because I listened to it, because everybody was like, Anthony, you got to review that. You got to listen to that Tragically Hip. I'm going to listen to it. Okay. I swear to God, I'm going to listen to it. Hey, Sean Evans. While you were doing their video, were there any discussions about doing Hot Ones, an interview? Afterwards, Sean said to me that it seemed like, you know, the video did really well and there was a lot of crossover between our audiences and that there would be opportunity to collaborate in the future. So, you know, I would say there's definitely a chance of doing Hot Ones in the future. I think I would probably just have to hit up Sean next year or something at some point and say, hey, dude, you know, you want to collab again this year, do Hot Ones or something? So, you know, for sure. I think so, you know, and I know the people who end up on that show are usually pretty big, and by next year, my channel will be even bigger by then. And, you know, Sean's a really nice guy, you know, really cool dude. I was, you know, I think both of us were kind of surprised at just how much we got along and how down to earth we kind of each were when we were, you know, just talking during the show and afterwards. But he was like a really great dude, and the whole shoot was fun. And, you know, seemed like we had a good time. And I plan to actually try to hang out with that dude soon, like outside of shooting videos. So, you know, shot me his phone number. Gonna call you, Sean. Gonna hit you up. So I had top comment on Perturbator's Dangerous Days album bid. Any chance we can get out of 10 if you remember how it sounds? Personally, no. I mean, I don't really remember like what, you know, I can't like just give it a score in the raw. I'd have to listen to the whole thing. What is my opinion on Stromae? He's okay, you know. I mean, there was a time when I was like, holy shit, you know, that's like actually pretty like cool and innovative. And I hope that this kind of makes its way over here. You know, I think he's okay. You know, it would be kind of cool to sort of see him take over a little bit more over here. It would definitely bring some diversity to things. Yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. Would I review Steve from Accounting album when it's finished later this year? I don't know. I guess I'd have to try it. How has the act of listening to music itself changed for you as an influential reviewer? Have I gone from couch to the desk with a notebook? Has it become laborious? I would say the only thing about it that's become laborious is just kind of keeping up with everything. Outside of that, you know, the process is very much the same. I'm usually at my computer, stereo's over there, or I have some headphones on. Maybe I'm at the gym or going for a run, just doing kind of like some cursory listens. Just kind of get a taste of the vibe of the record. But then, you know, once it becomes crunch time and the review has to come out, I'm usually in here, or I have a great pair of headphones on somewhere quiet, and I'm just like writing. You know, that process has really not changed. It's pretty much the same. What is my opinion on the Boomyverse album? And what do I think about news of a potential Tribe Called Quest and Outkast collab? That would be amazing. That would light things on fire. That the internet would die. But Boomyverse, it's okay. You know, I'm not all that crazy about it. There are some standout and highlight tracks on there, but like a lot of big boy projects, it's just kind of like this inconsistent potpourri. You know, it's just kind of like a little bit of a potpourri thing going on. And, you know, obviously there's some like really corny, obnoxious sort of pop rap tracks on there. That Adam Levine feature is terrible. You know, don't let anybody tell you otherwise. It's terrible. You know, I don't know what else to say. Other than that, just I'm just, you know, I sort of expected it to be okay, and it is. Simon and Garfunkel are great. I actually think they get less respect and less notoriety than they should get in the millennial generation, especially considering like Sufjan Stevens is a god, and you wouldn't have Sufjan Stevens without Paul Simon. So, you know, if you're a millennial and you're not into Simon and Garfunkel and you haven't listened to their records, like, you know, outside of the "Hello, darkness, my old friend" meme, please do yourself a goddamn favor and listen to some Simon and Garfunkel. Please, please. Do I have to beg you? David Steinharder asks, Flotation Toy Warning album review, Gorilla Toss album review, King Giz worst to best, opinion on mainstream music culture transitioning away from classic band setup. Flotation Toy Warning review, I don't know, I would have to look that up. Gorilla Toss are on my to listen list. King Giz worst to best. I'm not doing a worst to best on a band that are still in their prime because they've got to come out with, you know, King Giz has a lot of stuff to still come out with. You know what I mean? Like, and they have like 3 more albums on the way this year, so it's like it would be almost pointless. But mainstream music transitioning away from classic band setup, I mean, things change, man. Things evolve, and things are just kind of evolving. Hey, Anthony, would I consider doing a worst to best on Led Zeppelin or Metallica? Metallica is actually on a list of artists over here that I have that I'm just like, ooh, I should do worst to best on these artists. Definitely considering Metallica. Led Zeppelin would be kind of interesting too, though. Can I do a quick review of the cover photo I made for you back in November with the aesthetic squatting? What? Did I see it? Hit me up on Twitter, and I will try to answer your question. A thought on Clips? Hell Hath No Fury is a classic album, is an excellent album. And, you know, their debut is great, too. Actually, both of those albums are usually in pretty heavy rotation on my phone. Like, if one of those albums isn't on there, the other one typically is. And I don't know. I mean, just great lyricism, lots of great instrumentals, obviously. You know, obviously super edgy and dark and violent and druggy stuff going on in the lyrics. But, you know, Clips just have this weird kind of way of making it sound super bouncy and fun and accessible. Despite how fucked up some of the shit is going on in their music. Huge respect to Clips, and, you know, the fact that Clips are so amazing is the only reason I care about anything Pusha T still does to this day. Favorite Madonna album? You know, probably one of her 80s records. I mean, you know, obviously Like a Virgin. I mean, a lot of 90s stuff too, like from that she put out was pretty good. She didn't get enough respect from the kids today. That's kind of true, but I think that's partially because, you know, she's still like trying to do it. She's still trying to force it. And I feel like a lot of her newer output just isn't that good. It's not really up to snuff. I feel like if, you know, kids sort of understood what a cultural force she was back in the 80s and 90s, then, you know, they might respect her a little bit more if they sort of understood, I guess, sort of how you know, she really kind of paved the way for pretty much every pop star that they listen to and enjoy today. Without Madonna, you don't have Lady Gaga, you don't have Katy Perry, you really don't have any of it, you know. And I think ageism, I mean, I think there is at least a touch of ageism kind of inherent in pop music. Pop music, a lot like hip hop music, emphasizes youth, you know. You know, she didn't leave a pretty corpse behind in the same way that like, you know, or kind of like a very pretty, you know, sort of old school career like Michael Jackson did. You know, there kind of was that period where Michael Jackson sort of ruled the charts and then kind of like disappeared out of the limelight. Madonna has just always been consistently doing it. You know, she's always been on her grind, and I respect that. But, you know, it's kind of put her in a weird position where, you know, unfortunately there were a lot of young kids who were just kind of like, oh, that's just old. That's just old. And, you know, I wish they would kind of go back just in the same way that they appreciate a lot of Michael Jackson stuff in the 80s. Go back and appreciate some of Madonna's output, too, because she put out some good stuff. And, you know, like even before she was doing pop music, she was like in a weird little off the beaten path post-punk band that a lot of people don't know about. You know, so it's like, you know, Madonna's with the shit. You know, she's not like, you know, just some kind of harebrained pop artist with like no personality or no vision. You know, she's like, she consistently reinvented herself again and again and again with each album cycle in a way that, you know, Lady Gaga could only hope to. You know what I mean? I'm gonna leave it at that. You know, Madonna was doing the whole like rocking the whole country aesthetic, but way before Lady Gaga was. You know, she made that transition way before Lady Gaga did. Thoughts on Elliott Smith? Excellent, classic songwriter, modern classic, amazing, talented guy. Wish he was still around. The Strokes are going and on their side projects, Albert, Julian, The Voids. Another Voids record would be good. I really enjoyed that record. You know, not a perfect album, but I really enjoyed it. Did I catch Daft Punk in 2007? Unfortunately, I did not. I was too much of a pleb to actually go out to a Daft Punk show because I was just like probably being super edgy and listening to a bunch of punk music and listening to Tom Waits. Sorry if I've gotten this before, but favorite Beatles album and why? Probably either the Abbey Road or the White Album. I just love how sort of eclectic and weird the White Album is. I think there's so many essential and fantastic tracks on there, despite the fact that it's kind of like everybody kind of off doing their own thing a little bit. I get it. You know, the band wasn't the most cohesive in their discography as they were on that record, but I just find that album so fun and so random and so ridiculous. My friend the other day argued hip-hop and electronic music aren't valid forms of music because they aren't compositions. Thoughts? There are a lot of rock songs that aren't compositions. I mean, is fucking Blitzkrieg Bop a composition? Yeah, I don't really see that as like a valid criticism. I mean, there's certainly things you could critique hip hop and electronic music on, but saying that they aren't compositions, I mean, especially electronic music. I mean, you know, you have a lot of producers that are literally working in a DAW or some kind of like sequencing program like FL Studio. They're literally composing. So I don't know what to tell you, man. The critique doesn't really apply. Sorry if I've gotten this before, but no, answered that. Huge fan. I hate your opinion on Dance Gavin Dance, LOL. I work at my college radio station and write reviews for the newspaper. Any tips for better ways to write them or send one by email? Better ways to write reviews. I guess sort of I guess basics that I would work with and have you emphasize is who are you talking to and what are you trying to communicate to them? And are you communicating it effectively? You want your reviews to sort of be functional, you know, at least in my opinion. Like you want the reader to get something out of it. You want the reader to come away from that review, if you're recommending something, excited to go try it, or, you know, running away from it if it's horrible. Or at least maybe having a laugh at you kind of tearing it apart or something. So, you know, think about what you could do or what you could say to really kind of communicate to the reader what makes this album great and what makes it exciting and what makes it worth their time. Tell them that and make sure that they know it. Have I ever heard Trophy Scars? I have, but I don't remember what they sound like. So I have to kind of leave it at that, unfortunately. What is my opinion on Jim O'Rourke's Eureka and Insignificance and or Halfway to a Three-Way? Eureka is decent. You know, Jim O'Rourke, I've never been a huge fan, but I do sort of see his place in the underground. I get why people are sort of attracted to his stuff. I mean, I have to leave it at that. You know, I was trying out some of his recent works and sort of, you know, trying out some of his older stuff and his classic stuff to kind of like, you know, do a bit of a comparison. And, you know, it's very obtuse. I think I just probably haven't given it enough ear time, you know, to just kind of like really kind of let it sink in and have some kind of like influence on me and impact on me. Do I have public lists of my favorite albums of the genres like hip hop, top punk, etc.? If so, I'm requesting. That's probably a good idea to just sort of like do a series of videos where it's like, here are my favorite punk records, here are my favorite blah, 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 here are my favorite blah, blah, blah. I actually probably should do a series of videos where I'm just like, hey, if you want to get into this genre, here's a bunch of albums that you need to try. That's actually probably a pretty good idea for a video series. Thank you for kind of getting me off my ass to do that, because I've been thinking about doing it for a while, and I probably should get around to that and stop being a lazy bastard and overloading myself with too much to do. Have I listened to Chuck Schuldner's side project Control Denied? What is my favorite Sepultura album? Favorite Sepultura album, off the top of my head, I don't know. I know that back in the day, I used to listen to like, you know, during my nu metal days, I used to listen to Soulfly. Like I thought Soulfly was just like the shit. But as far as Chuck's like side project Control Denied, I know nothing about it, so I can't comment. But Soulfly, man, that was like my shit back in the day. Quick thoughts on Milky Chance. I can't really say, but am I as hyped for the Calvin Harris album as many other people are? I don't know. I'm kind of interested. I mean, it could be better than I anticipated to be, but as of right now, I'm just kind of like, oof, I don't really know. What is my opinion on Foo Fighters? I think they are good, but they lack something to be great. I don't know what. I kind of agree with that assessment, but you know what? Honestly, like as far as like a band during the 90s and the 2000s that made rock music that was really radio friendly, like they're a pretty great band, you know, like they've come out with some great tracks over the years. They have some great singles. Do the Foo Fighters really truly have a classic timeless rock album under their belts? I don't really know, honestly, but to be completely frank, I don't really know if that's what Dave Grohl ever really set out to do with the Foo Fighters, you know? Just kind of sounds like he just wants to make some rock music that people can just like, you know, truly enjoy without having to, you know, sort of think of music in those terms, you know what I mean? Like Dave Grohl has been there, you know, for the writing and the creation of classic records. He knows what goes into a classic record. To me, it just kind of seems like he wants to make rock music for everybody to enjoy, not just like, you know, kind of snobby, overly analytical, you know, music nerd types or something like that. And, you know, which is totally fine, you know. I respect that because he's been doing it for a long time and he's been doing it well. So, you know, respect to Dave Grohl. Anthony, favorite Stevie Wonder song? Songs in the Key of Life, bitch. That's my favorite, probably, album from him. Have I listened to Carpenter Brut? He makes heavy synthwave that seems to take inspiration from Justice's Cross. I have not, but thank you for the recommendation. Thoughts on Jai Paul and the leak in 2013? I mean, I don't really have any thoughts on him until he puts an album out. I don't know why anybody would have a thought on him until he puts an album out. Put out an album, and I'll have a thought on him. I think he needs to come out with an album. And the leak in 2013 was just a mediocre, badly recorded demo, and I have virtually no interest in it. Not to sound mean about you asking that, but I'm just like kind of frustrated that we don't have an album. Opinion on the general lack of attention the new Fleet Foxes is getting? I mean, personally, I haven't paid too much attention to the attention that the album is getting. I know I myself like the album a lot. But if people aren't hype on the record, I think it could have a great deal to do with the fact that, you know, the whole indie folk wave that the band rode in on is kind of gone. And 6 years of studio album silence in the internet age is a fucking lifetime, man, you know, to be completely honest. You know, hopefully they kind of come back a little bit and, you know, they can kind of, you know, gain their crowd, gain their following back. But, you know, when you take this long to come out with a new record, it does hurt you. It does affect the band. And, you know, the music industry today is not the way that it used to be. If you're being silent, if you're quiet, if you're not engaging people with new material, with new content, you know, people forget about you and people move on and people listen to other things, which I think, you know, probably has a great deal to do with it. Have I heard anything by Maine-based rapper Spose? Other than I'm Awesome, he's one of the few rappers I listen to regularly. I have not, but I will give that a screenshot and sort of see what's up. Have you heard of Radiohead's OK Computer, OK Not OK, which was released, songs and B-sides, I'm thinking about buying it. I mean, I haven't, heard or spoiled, the whole project for myself or anything. It's kind of on my like maybe list to purchase. I'm thinking about it. You've kind of convinced me. I'm gonna write it down. Comp, OK, not OK. I was kind of surprised to learn that the front cover is like a picture of a highway in Connecticut, which is actually kind of insane. I wonder how many albums on Rolling Stone's 500 Greatest Albums of All Time list that you've actually heard. I talked about this, I think, during the last live stream. I've not heard all those fucking albums. I guarantee you right now, and I barely remember everything off that list. What are my thoughts on Ween? Very eclectic, creative band. Although they've never been a band that I've been a gigantic fan of, but I think they're pretty fun. I remember back in the day, back in college, I wanted to, hold on a second, I have to tweet this out. Thank you very much. I remember back in college, Quebec was like in super heavy rotation. We loved the shit out of Quebec. And it is a very fun album. Oh shit, this is all like fucked up over here. How long has that been messed up? Probably like the whole stream. I apologize for that. All right, let's move on. Thoughts on Bob Marley? Bob Marley's one of the greats. Favorite Bob Marley album. What now? Why is this all? Okay, now I'm seeing what's going on over here. Exodus, probably. No questions for you. Just keep up the good work. Thank you. Oh, dude. Perturbators over here fucking shouting me out over here. Okay, now I feel like the pressure's on. Like people over here are like, hey man, you listen to his stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I think he's a good guy. Like not like insanely, enamored with his sound, but now he's over here donating to me, like, and making me feel like a fucking dickhead. But listen to this dude over here. Listen to this goddamn dude. He's got a good, solid Bandcamp discography, and much respect. Last try. Thoughts on Andy Schauf or other lives? I'm sorry you've been having to try for so long on this, but I don't really have any thoughts on Andy. I apologize, but thank you for supporting the show. What about doing King Crimson worst to best? I mean, could be fun, but honestly, I feel like there are other artists out there who would be more interesting to do a worst to best on, and they'd probably garner more interest amongst my viewers. Thoughts on Francis the Mute and Mars Volta? Are you on Last FM? I am on Last FM, but honestly, I got off of Last FM because people were just like, fucking God, they were stalking the fuck out of my Last FM and every single thing that I listened to. Like, it was so fucking anal retentive. Like, people are like, how come this album's on your Last FM? How come this album's on your Last FM? And I'm just like, Jesus Christ. There are only albums in here that I listen to, like, pretty much for reviewing, and half of those albums that you're yelling at me for not listening to in my Last FM, I own them on fucking vinyl, and when I listen to them on vinyl, okay? So it's like, I stopped fucking going on Last FM because people were just like overly analyzing every single fucking thing I listened to something, how many times I listened to something, what is in my Last FM, what's not in my Last FM, what's at the top of my Last FM, what's at the bottom of my Last FM. And I'm like, fuck this. This is not fun. I don't enjoy this. So I just stopped using it. But Francis the Mute is probably my favorite Mars Volta project. I know some people see it as like really masturbatory and everything, but I think it's a really good progressive rock album. I think it's a really fun album. I think it's really badass. Definitely one of their most badass projects. Moving on from there, let's go. More questions. I'm sorry I'm not getting to all of them, but I'm trying to do as many as I can. Thoughts on Beirut? I mean, they were a pretty decent indie sensation back in the day. Flying Club Cup is still pretty fun. When they sort of came in on a really interesting and weird wave where everybody was like simultaneously obsessed with like music from the Eastern Bloc and everything. A Hawk and a Hacksaw, I think, was probably the best group in that whole era to do it. Definitely check out A Hawk and a Hacksaw. The drummer from Neutral Milk Hotel, sort of spearheads it, but I digress. Beirut is okay. I think after Flying Club Cup, things went downhill really fast, unfortunately. But, it was a decent little, a buzz band. I saw that you reviewed Braid's Native Speaker a while back, so I was wondering what you think of their newer stuff. Thoughts on Sweet Trip 2? No thoughts on Sweet Trip, unfortunately. And you know, Braid's Native Speaker, their newer stuff didn't really stick with me, honestly. Like, and neither is Native Speaker, to be completely honest, which is part of the reason I didn't really cover much of their new stuff, because it's just like, ugh, I barely remember this. I don't really care that much about the sound. It's not really, you know, speaking to me, I guess. Yeah, you know, it just doesn't really do much for me, to be completely honest. Calvin Spaghetti says, oh, and one more thing. My sibling has a Boston-based noise band, experimental pop band called Birthing Hips. I think you'd be into them, maybe. I like noisy pop music, possibly. Have you ever checked out the Cardiacs? Yes, I have. And I think that happened like last year at some point. Somebody was like, oh, dude, you have to check out the Cardiacs. And I was like, you know, what is this band? And then when I started like looking into their stuff, I was like, okay, this seems like some weird, crazy, like experimental art rock shit that I'm going to be totally into. And while it is difficult to digest, their stuff is really fucking off the wall. And unfortunately, because I found out about them recently, I haven't had the opportunity to like listen to their whole discography yet. But definitely a band that more people should listen to if you're into stuff that's off the beaten path and stuff that's like a little difficult and wild. Pink Floyd, worst to best. Nick Cave, worst to best. Miles Davis, worst to best. Where are my current plans on classic reviews? I don't know my classic review set right now for the end of the year. All of those bands, worst to best, would be fucking like a giant undertaking. And like now that I'm kind of getting into doing the worst to best thing, I wonder how often I'm going to be able to do them, because I feel like my current rate of doing them like once a month or once every 2 months is like ridiculous. And I'm thinking of like the fact that once I get this MF Doom one done, I have to do a Bjork one, and that's just going to be such a huge undertaking. And it's like, you know, while the first ones that I did were really fun, I'm thinking like, man, when other sites do this, like fucking, they have like maybe 4 or 3 people writing the list all at once. And it's like, oh, I'm doing all of this myself and doing all the listening myself. And it's like, it's a lot. It's a lot, guys. It really is. And, you know, I'm just like trying to keep my review schedule up too, because ultimately, like, you know, new music is really kind of what I'm interested in. And that's kind of where like my passion lies. But if I give up on new music entirely and I, you know, get old, I'll totally retire new music and just do worst to best all day or something. Please click this time, Fantuan. Have I listened to the Boston-based band The Solars at all? I have not. So I guess I'll just have to check them out based on your recommendation. What are some of my favorite drummers? Definitely like Brian Chippendale, definitely Zach Hill, Neil Peart, the drummer from Dead Kennedys too. Like, he's a monster. I'm trying to think of what else, if anything else. Yeah, those are probably my favorite drummers that I could mention there. Thoughts on Matt McNerney projects, Beast Milk, Grave Pleasures. I mean, Beast Milk is pretty good. Beast Milk is pretty good, I will say. Unfortunately, like Beast Milk, I came to them a little late in the game. Like, I saw that and I was like, oh, that kind of seems like something I should be into, I should be in love with. And then when I finally gave it a shot, I was just kind of like, you know, it's okay. It's not really sitting with me. But then, like, after long came the time span that it was like, oh, it would make sense to review this. Then it was like, it finally like kind of clicked with me a little bit. Like, I wasn't in love with it, but it was like, oh, it finally like made sense and it was appealing to me. So I guess I'm like looking out for it in the future. You know, I apologize. I mean, it's like, unfortunately, I don't get to everything and not everything clicks with me when I feel like it should. You know, unfortunately, there are a lot of projects that, like, you know, unfortunately fall through the cracks because I'm just like one human being at the end of the day. Let me see over here. What are we looking at in terms of, oh, we're like on 90 minutes right now. We're powering through this whole thing, aren't we? And taking all these dang questions. Moving on from there, did I hear Jim James' last album? Ugh, I did, but I don't care for Jim James solo stuff at all. I'll just leave it at that. It leaves no impression on me. And same with, you know, the latest My Morning Jacket stuff. Just leaves no impression on me, to be completely honest. Are there any artists considered great by most people that you dislike? Not that I dislike, you know, that I think they're terrible. Not really, you know. I guess most of the time when that happens, it's sort of like a newer artist. You know, as far as like classic stuff, not entirely. I guess, you know, another example, as I referenced them earlier, ISIS. Like, I've never been a huge ISIS fan. Like, their music has always been, like, a little too low on detail and a little too slow for my opinion. But I see the hype and I get it. You know, I don't hear ISIS and think, oh, gross. ISIS. Ugh. You know, but there's certainly, like, times when I find myself, like, kind of being the odd man out when a band like Sleigh Bells, for example, are super hype. Everybody fucking loves them. They're the next best thing. And then I'm like, nope, me no likey. And, you know, even though now in retrospect, a lot of people are like, oh, Sleigh Bells. Ugh. I like their new album though. So go figure. But you know, so most often when I find myself in that position, it's usually a newer group. Usually a newer group. Favorite Beach House album? Probably Devotion. And self-titled's okay. And the B-sides and rarities compilation, I don't know. I'll probably try it at some point, although I'm not like really excited to. And I don't even know if I really am all that crazy to review it. I've seen you mention some fans and send you tapes. If I want to send you something, how can we go about doing that? P.O. Box 23, Rockfall CT 06481. Don't make me regret that. Have I listened to the Growlers, that is, asks Brandon, or any of the new The Garden? I have listened to the Garden EP. It was okay. And the Growlers, I'm just not into. Their music, for me, I just find it a little bland, not really that adventurous. Yeah, it just really doesn't leave an impact on me. But, you know, The Garden, I am still kind of, you know, crossing my fingers and waiting for the moment that they really kind of blow me away, because they do seem like a really strange, eclectic, you know, out there kind of band that I should be into more than I actually am. Thoughts on Woven Hand? No thoughts. Jamie O'Brown? No thoughts. Jamie O'Brown Transcendence? No thoughts. And Tau Cross? No thoughts, really. I'm not really expert enough on any of them to really comment on them, though I know Woven Hand and Tau Cross have been kind of like consistently just like falling through the cracks for me. You know what I mean? I heard the new Tau Cross single and I really didn't care for it at all. But you know, they're just kind of examples of groups that, you know, I see people talking about them. I hear about them. Maybe I try a single here or there and it just doesn't stick with me, you know? And unfortunately that's like kind of the barrier for whether or not I dive deeper and dig further into a band. You know, it's like, did the first song I heard or did the first couple of songs I heard leave an impression on me? Was I impressed with your work? Did it speak to me? Did I remember it? Unfortunately, with a lot of groups, it's just no, you know, because I review like, you know, like 4 or 5 albums a week, and those are just the things that you guys see me cover. You know, outside of that, there are probably dozens more records that I'm listening to over the course of the month, or bands that I'm hearing or finding out about that I'm just like, no, I'm not covering this. I'm not interested in that. Nobody's asking me to review this, and I don't really care for it. So, you know, unfortunately, I don't really have any thoughts. Random question, but thoughts on self-titled? Like, are we thinking about the same self-titled? Like, are like the guy? Like, yeah, okay. So I mean, I imagine this isn't like an album title, right? Because, you know, sometimes I know some people and, you know, and artists, band names, album covers, you know, like there's all types of new shit. But anyway, self-titled, like back in the day, Demigods in college were like kind of my shit. So I liked some of his verses, and he's got like a big, heavy, like husky voice. You know, he's cool. You know, he's like, I've never like fallen in love with his stuff or anything, at least not at this point. But thoughts on Philosophies of Him by Burzum, and thoughts on Red by King Crimson. That Burzum record is definitely one of his better ones. I mean, you know, it's pretty good. And Red by King Crimson is actually like, I think, a pretty underrated record in the whole prog rock genre. Like definitely an album that you wouldn't have bands like Primus, you know, without that record. So much respect to, you know, King Crimson and that album. Favorite Slipknot songs off of first 2 records. People Equal Shit and Spit It Out. Definitely. And do you think they'll ever return to where they once were? No, not really. It's gone. It's it's over. It's done. Which band left a larger impact on modern music, the Beatles or Kraftwerk? Oh, good question, man. Good question. I mean, I would probably just have to say that from a cultural and a musical standpoint, probably the Beatles, because, you know, they were more popular than Kraftwerk ever was. But from like an innovation standpoint, maybe Kraftwerk, because I mean, those guys were like literally making instruments, you know, it's like they were pioneering, you know, like so many different ideas and sort of like fundamentals in electronic music that still hold true to this very fucking day. You know, I guess you could sort of say that is also the case with the Beatles as far as like songwriting and stuff like that and pop music. But, you know, it's a really good question there and a good kind of thing to sort of ponder. Have I ever listened to the Mekons? Any favorite CDs from them? I have not. You can call me a pleb down in the description. And shout out to the Crude Brothers. They have a sweet ass YouTube channel, and I've been in contact with them on and off. And again, check them out. YouTube, the Crude Brothers. George Senpai is asking me thoughts on System of a Down. I talked about this earlier in the live stream. I think they're the shit. And first two records are seriously underappreciated by the millennial generation. Have I seen Street Sex live? No, I have not. And God, I want to. Thoughts on Rammstein? Oh man, back in the day, they were the shit. Actually, that's kind of another group that sort of came out and made waves during the whole nu metal era that I think, you know, definitely deserves more praise, more respect. Their first couple of records are great. And, you know, I think I'm just going to leave it at that. I actually have been meaning to, because I had all these Rammstein CDs back in the day, and I fucking sold them. And I saw them live twice when I was a kid. But I've actually been meaning to, like, buy those CDs back because, like, I kind of miss them sometimes. Thoughts on Smithson Morrissey, I talked about earlier. Why do I hate Periphery? I feel like they did some interesting things conceptually on their Juggernaut albums. Personally, like all that super clean, pristine, overly sanitary, progressive rock and progressive metal and gent flirting type stuff is a huge turnoff to me. I feel like I'm listening to you know, a machine of cogs and springs sort of popping off, like there's and the clean soaring vocals like make my wiener shrivel up and sink into my body to the point where it's just irretrievable. Their music is just like such a huge turnoff for me, man. Everything I love about rock music and metal, the viscera, the rawness, the blood spattered on the wall, the sweat, the guts, the stubble, you know, everything I love about rock music, the low down dirtiness, Periphery doesn't have it. And that's why their music is like such a turnoff for me. I don't know. Thoughts on the new bent knee? I have no thoughts on it because I have not tried the new bent knee yet. Have I heard of Jacob Collier? I have not, but now that you're sort of mentioning it here, I guess I will screenshot it. Any thoughts on Kendrick's ranking of his own albums? In a recent interview, he said Damn was his best, followed by Good Kid, Mad City, T-Pab, Section 80, blah, 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 blah. Honestly, I think he's kind of hyping himself up a little bit. I mean, the fact that he put T-Pab right above Section 80 to me just like doesn't really make any sense. I guess it sort of depends on... You know, it seems like he was ranking them in terms of what they did in terms of numbers or sort of mainstream pop accessibility. Obviously, Section 80 has the least pop accessibility. T-Pab has more. As far as pop accessibility, Good Kid, Mad City is certainly above T-Pab. And then Damn has probably had his biggest radio single so far. So, I mean, if you're ranking them in terms of the amount of like whether or not they appeal to a lower common denominator, yeah, I would guess that's the ranking. But if you're sort of ranking them based on which one is the more thematic, more cohesive, more well-crafted and sleeker and more cohesive album, Damn is objectively one of his least cohesive albums. I mean, you know, if you were going to You could make an argument that Good Kid, Mad City is more cohesive than To Pimp a Butterfly, because To Pimp a Butterfly, it is kind of a long-winded record. There are some points where, it feels like the narrative is a little loose. Good Kid, Mad City is definitely a tighter record, a more well-groomed record than, Damn. I get that you might want to make the argument that, like, well, Damn is just way easier to listen to than T-Pab. Sure, that's true. But Good Kid, Mad City is way easier to listen to than T-Pab as well. And I think consistently the songwriting, the production, and the overall flow of the album is superior to that of Damn. So it just kind of seems like he's just trying to get people more hype on his newest album than they should be, in my opinion, with that comment. What is my opinion on Don Killuminati and the 7 Day Theory by Machiavelli, aka Tupac? Classic records, in my opinion, and I sort of love how on that, outside of sort of the Tupac umbrella under his own name, he was sort of doing stuff that was like a little more hardcore, a little more edgy, sort of under that umbrella. I have no thought on that J-Rock trio. I have not listened to them. Thank you, Joey Marlin, for $5 there. Why I Know review the new Portugal the Man album. I'm coming out with a quickie review of it tomorrow. So just wait on that. Let's see. Mr. Fantano, thoughts on religion's presence in modern rap? Chance Kanye Kendrick. How would I feel if Kanye dropped Vishnu Walks? Honestly, Christianity and the church is still a very prominent cultural force in the black community, so it's not really like surprising that there is a lot of hip hop out there, and a lot of music that comes from the black community that is, sort of heavily inspired by Christian music, by gospel music, and just sort of Christian culture in general. I'm fine with it, personally. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think it's inherently a bad thing. There are things ideologically I disagree with Christianity on. I don't necessarily see Bronze Age mythology as essential to modern society. But at least in the examples of the artists that you cite right there, I think Chance's Christian influences and the way that Christianity influences music is altogether positive and cool. For the most part, yes, with Kendrick, although it has been, kind of negative with his new album, in my opinion, but not in the way that it ruined his record. I guess it kind of made a pretty interesting to sort of critically and mentally analyze his album from that perspective. And Kanye, I mean, for the most part too, yeah, cool. I mean, and some of my other favorite rap artists too, like Big Crit. I guess it is kind of weird to sometimes see those artists not really following or walking that walk, as it were, if they're sort of like hyping up, oh, I'm a Christian. But otherwise, if we limit it strictly to the music, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, and I don't think it ruins the music either. Moving on from there. Any opinion on VNV Nation or Covenant or any of those future pop bands? VNV Nation, what I've heard, I'm just not really into. And I have no thoughts on Covenant, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, if that's a whole future pop thing, I'm not looking forward to the future of pop. Seeing as how Kraftwerk was mentioned, do I have any opinion on Delia Derbyshire and her music? Your boy Danny Brown put me onto her. Danny Brown is into some underground shit, and I've been really meaning to talk music with him one day. And apparently now, via you, I'm going to be turned on to her as well. You listened to the new Igor album. I'm planning on it. It is on my to-listen list. Has reviewing music / making your job changed the way I enjoy it? Is it a chore? It's definitely changed the way I enjoy it in that I think I'm pickier. I'm definitely pickier than I used to be. However, I think I get more and I enjoy more out of music than I used to. There are things that I observe and I sort of take account of and I care about that I didn't before I had heard so much and I was, I guess, kind of being so critical. I wouldn't say it's ruined my ability to sort of casually just enjoy music, though. There's a lot of music that, I can just kind of sit back and not really think about ripping it apart or anything like that. And I can just kind of like listen to it and just like it without sort of being in that mindset. At one point it was kind of hard to turn it off, but now that I've been doing it for so long, I'm just kind of used to it. Hey, Anthony Fantango Mango. Do I think Denzel Curry? What do I think of? Do you think Denzel Curry commercially in terms of rap culture is underrated? Denzel Curry definitely underrated, and I've been meaning to try out his new EP too. So let me write a reminder for that. Denzel Curry EP, try it. Thank you. Been meaning to try that shit. Am I familiar at all with musician Ben Jordan, aka the Flashbulb? I'm not, but I can definitely screenshot this and just see what's up. Any thoughts on Brand New for all the emo and pop punk bands out there, Melon? I mean, Brand New is a pretty epic band as far as emo and pop punk. And to be honest, I'm pretty excited to hear whatever they're going to be doing on this new record over here, because it would be great to hear Brand New come back again and kill it. Thoughts on Casey Musgraves? She's a pretty decent new country artist. I mean, she's definitely not as, you know, sort of overly commercial and, you know, sort of groomed as a lot of new country artists are. But I don't feel like that should be the standard that we work with. You know what I mean? Is she the grittiest? Is she the best songwriter? Da, 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 da. I mean, you know, I think that's debatable. You know, I think there are better and rootsier and more interesting artists in country right now, in the present and in the past. You know, but certainly I give her more props than, you know, the average, like, kind of wash, rinse, repeat sort of, you know, radio friendly country singer. Do you think it's possible to make a groundbreaking rock album today? Yes, I absolutely do. But the thing is, like, I feel like the audience kind of needs to be there for it. And that's kind of the issue right now. I feel like, you know, rock music, while it's not as innovative as it used to be, I think there are still some bands that are doing some really cool things. Algiers, for example, you know, you actually see Algiers right down here in the corner next to my big fat ass melon head. Check out this review over here if you haven't checked out this review. This is a groundbreaking and a fun and an interesting rock album that's very creative. However, I feel like the audience isn't there for rock as it used to be, or if it's there, they're listening to mostly the older stuff, mostly the classic stuff. They're not keeping up with what's new and what's on the cutting edge. Bands like Algiers are on the cutting edge, and you have to try out those bands, and you have to support the bands if you want the genre to still be around. Moving on from there, Mr. Fantano, why you know review of Monsters and Men? Not a Monsters and Men fan. Don't care for the band. I don't really feel like I have anything to say about them other than things that people will hate me for, and I'd much rather review other things that people are demanding of me, or I guess, oh wait, no, hold on a second. I feel like I'm fucking up here and getting them mixed up with another group. Oh, okay, never mind. However, there was another group that I was thinking of that I got their name mixed up with. However, of Monsters and Men, now that I know who is who, I don't really care for them either. So sorry for the mix-up, but I don't really care for them or the band of Mice and Men that I had them mixed up with in my head. So sorry about that. I have many bands to keep track of in my head. Where that Phoenix review at? Ugh, I was just listening to that album the other day, and it does nothing for me. You know, it's got some poppy grooves to it, but like the songs are so forgettable. You know, like I really have nothing to say about it, honestly. Like, it's kind of fun to have on in the background, but like, is it essential dancey pop music? Not in my opinion. Not in my opinion. I have not listened to the new Jaron Benton, unfortunately. I guess I'm kind of mildly curious though. I hope he's doing well after the whole, you know, label demise thing. I don't know if he's still on the label. I have not listened to the new Kevin Morby album. I don't know how curious I am though. Best Judas Priest album. God. Best Judas Priest album. I want to say, well, let me look. I want to say one of their 80s. I want to say, like, you know, some fucking album like British Steel or Screaming for Vengeance. But honestly, like, for some reason, like, I really love Painkiller. Like, for whatever reason, miraculously, this heavy metal band from the 70s and the 80s put out this amazing album in 1990 titled Painkiller. And honestly, I really love that album. It might be my favorite of theirs. I don't know if it's their best. I feel like that's arguable. You know, you could definitely say some of their more classic stuff is their best, but my favorite might be Painkiller. Yes, I know Venetian Snares. You know, he's very eclectic. He's very out there. You know, I think his music is a little too challenging for me sometimes, but, you know, certainly he has all the respect in the world from me. I've not listened to that Paul Simon record. How do I manage my time so well? You know, honestly, I feel like I don't. You know, because sometimes my personal life is in tatters because I don't manage my time too well, and I sort of put maybe too much priority into working as I should. However, I am working every day on just trying to find more balance, find better balance. I've not listened to that band, Born Gold. Best Devo album, in my opinion, is Are We Not Men? We Are Devo. What is my opinion on Prophets of Rage? I'm not really that into Prophets of Rage, honestly. And let me write down this Jaron Benton, because so many people are bringing it up, and maybe it is the shit. Because honestly, I did see a lot of potential in Jaron when I saw him. You know, when I saw his early stuff, like a little cartoony, a little silly, a little boo, but you know, the dude can spit and he has personality. So I don't know. I guess I'll give it a listen and see. Thoughts on Twin Peaks, the original show and its music? Excellent music. First 2 seasons are great. The new season, I've been watching it, and you know, to sort of piss off some people here. The more I watch it, though, the more I'm just kind of like, it's okay. I just kind of feel like I'm watching it just because of the hype, just because of the brand name, just because of all that stuff. I just sort of wonder whether or not, you know, I'm really going to, you know, I feel unenthused. And I feel like I shouldn't, though, you know, because it's Twin Peaks, but I feel unenthused. Music doesn't change, it evolves, presumably. So can you extract a single band artist from every decade? Let's start with the 1950s and explain why music is what we know today. Not in a single live stream. No, I can't. Not in a single live stream. Have I heard of Chrome Sparks? I have, but his music has never really left that strong of an impression on me. If you look up Anthony Fantano playing bass, a video of you and some guy jamming together called Tyga comes up. It made me wonder, if you were to start a band, what genre would it be? I'd probably do some weird dancey post-punky shit at this point. It probably wouldn't sound anything like that shitty video that you'll probably find if you look that up. So now I'm going to try to, let's see, jump down. We have like 9 minutes to go in this whole thing. Hello, Melon Man. This Henrique Russo is asking, have I heard Stranger's Head Prevail by Thank You Scientist? I have not. So, but it does sound like a really a really unique thing. I've never heard such a band and album title in my life, so I am curious. Why do people insist rock is dead when bands like Cage the Elephant and Royal Blood exist? I think it's just because rock is not at the prominence that it used to be in terms of cultural relevance. I think that's really what it boils down to. You know, and it's not, but you know, the thing is, everything comes back, everything resurges, and nothing that's popular stays popular forever. I mean, you know, EDM has been bumped off the charts by trap, you know, like anything is possible. So, you know, just remember that, oh, rock is dead, rock is dead, rock is dead. Like, you know, all those people are going to be proven wrong down the road once it comes back, which, again, everything comes back. Everything becomes irrelevant. And new things will come as well. Like, there'll be new trends and genres that sort of come up out of the ether that, you know, we didn't anticipate. And it'll be exciting, and hopefully I'll be there for it. Hi, Smackingy the Dortano. Have you heard Tangle Band Camp Corn? Big fans of your show. No, I have not heard of that. I don't think many people have heard of that. Bandcamp Com? No, I have not. But but I guess people have heard of it now. What's the argument for investing in vinyl over MP3s? Does it improve the listening experience? I mean, the audio quality of vinyl is better than that of MP3s, especially if you're talking about a record that has been recorded to tape. You're talking about an analog signal printed onto an analog, you know, sort of format. You know, but don't think of it as an investment. You know what I mean? That's not how I look at my records. I don't look at my records and be like, oh man, these records are going to be worth a whole lot of money. Goose, such an investment. You know, I buy my records and I, you know, use my records because I just enjoy them. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't envision yourself buying vinyl and enjoying owning and listening to vinyl, then don't buy it. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't feel like you're going to get anything out of it, you know, that you wouldn't just listening to an album digitally, then don't, you know? But you know, if you want to take the plunge and you enjoy buying and you enjoy listening to vinyl, you know, listen, it's 2017. You probably have a friend or know somebody who owns a record player. Go ask them. Go listen to their record player. Go listen to their records. Does it sound better to you? Do you get anything out of listening to an album on vinyl? Go give it a shot. And if it does, then pursue it. If it doesn't, go back to listening to digital, because honestly, I listen to a lot of digital every week and there's no shame in it. Always wondered what I think about your favorite band, the Wilhelm Scream. I have no opinions, but thank you for supporting the show, though. Any thoughts on judging music you make yourself? I don't know. It'd probably be difficult to do since you're the source of the music. I mean, obviously, artists have to judge their own music before they release it to decide whether or not it's good or worth releasing. So it can be done, but like judging it in terms of like reviewing it formally, I don't know. It'd be kind of weird. Seems like a conflict of interest. Do you think an indie artist should put their music on Spotify? Yes. As an indie artist, you're gonna make way more money on Spotify independently than you would if you were on a label and they're taking a fucking cut of your Spotify money. You know, as an indie artist, if you're an independent artist and you're trying to get your music out there, you want your music to be everywhere people can stumble upon it. And Spotify is one of the most popular places to hear new music. I'm actually considering like probably repackaging my videos and taking the audio and throwing that up on Spotify and seeing, you know, how it does, because it's such a popular platform. And just, you know, again, just kind of seeing how they do, because, you know, it seems like the place to be as far as like, you know, people trying music and listening to music. Can I wiggle my ears? No, I cannot, but I can do this with my nose. Also, have I ever seen a movie or some other form of media that I really wanted to make an official review to, but I had to restrain myself? I mean, you know, there are some times when I see movies or TV shows that it would be fun to talk about or fun to sort of have a video out that it's like, hey, this has like hundreds of thousands of views and I've started a conversation on it. But honestly, like, you know, I think about it and I'm like, I'd rather hang back and just kind of enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, so I honestly, you know, reviews for me are work. That's work. It's my job. You know, and if I can just kind of, you know, take a break every once in a while and just watch a movie or something, you know, it's welcome. Hi, Melon. What are your thoughts on the debut album, Choir of the Eye by K.O. Dot on Burn Piano Island by the Blood Brothers? Choir of the Eye, good record. Burn Piano Island, excellent record. Love that album. I was talking about the Blood Brothers earlier. And definitely a band that in this decade does not get enough respect. And I kind of get why, you know, their style was a little bit of a musical dead end, but they were a really unique band in the 2000s and, you know, should be appreciated as such. And hopefully, you know, maybe some people interested in that sound sort of bring it back next decade when we get that wave of 2000s nostalgia. I'm disgusting. 50 years, what artists will people think of when they think of this generation? Good question, man. You know, probably Kendrick, Kanye, definitely. You know, people will probably still remember Drake. You know, though maybe it's you know, they might remember him maybe not in the most positive of lights. I think people will remember Kendrick and Kanye for sure. I think people will remember, I don't know what else. Goddamn, 50 years. It's a long time. You know, what do we remember from 50 years ago? You know, like the Beatles and fucking Rolling Stones and that sort of stuff. And, you know, Kendrick, Kanye. I'm trying to think of like who's coming out with records that, you know, are really going to be like withstanding the test of time. Because the thing is like, you know, mainstream artists that have a lot of, you know, maybe Death Grips. I don't know, man. I really don't know. It's a big question. I don't want to miss. Am I missing one here? Am I missing one? Nope. Okay, if I had an opportunity to remove one music artist from history in hopes of improving music, who would it be? That's a crazy question. Oh my God. Who would improve? Who would the removal of improve music? I don't know. That's an insane question. Who ruined music? Who could I blame on ruining music? You know, Jesus, it's such a cross to bear. Who would be improved? Because honestly, you know, there's some artists over the past few years that, like, you know, have, like, for example, like there's a lot of Odd Future music that I don't like, as you already know. But like Odd Future is so obviously an influence on Brockhampton, and I love Brockhampton. You know, so it's like, I feel like it's such a double-edged sword, because even those artists that you don't like, sometimes they influence things in a positive way, and sometimes they influence things, I don't know, in a way that I don't know, sometimes they just influence things in a way, they inspire artists not to make something bad, you know? So it's like, you never know. It kind of, you know, it's kind of like thinking about going back in time and killing baby Hitler, you know, although, you know, we're talking about music here, so the stakes are way, way, way lower. So I don't know, but a crazy question. But if I had to, like, sort of just throw a name out there, probably like Creed or something, you know, probably Creed. You know, although again, you know, I feel like I'm bullying Creed. I feel like that's mean. I feel like that's a mean thing to say. So I apologize. I'm sorry. Is the birthday story true? Had to ask. I don't know what the birthday story is, so I'm gonna have to not answer this. Do I think music has lost the ability to be subversive? No, absolutely not. Do I think music needs to change its form as opposed to genre and evolve and revolutionize? I don't really know about the second question, but I don't think music has lost its ability to be subversive. You know, I do think societally there are less taboos than there used to be, but I don't think music has lost the ability to be subversive. You know, it's just that artists need to go out there and actually want to be subversive. You know, and there are ways to be subversive in 2017. There are sacred cows you could be attacking. Do musicians want to go out there and attack those sacred cows? I mean, maybe they're not as incentivized as much as they used to be to do it because, I mean, the music industry is so volatile. Careers are here and gone. The careers are dead overnight, you know? There are probably a lot of musicians out there who are like maybe a little hesitant to kind of rock the boat because they don't want to see their careers kind of go down the tubes like that. You know what I mean? So, you know, music has not lost that ability. It's just kind of dependent upon the artist to kind of be that and embody that. This will be the last question I take over here. What do I think about the band Supertramp? Never really left an impact on me, unfortunately. You know, they are a decent band. Yeah, they've never really meant much to me, honestly. And I don't know, guys. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for, you know, supporting this live stream. Thank you for being here. Thank you for asking questions. You know, looking at some of the chats over here. Kill Trap Music. Do I play any instruments? Bass, yes. Nickelback is worse than Creed. Do I like Cult Leader? I don't know. REM is great. What do I think about Cigarettes After Sex? Cigarettes After Sex put me to sleep. 9 Inch Nails, excellent. I skipped your question. I'm sorry if I skipped your question. You know, I didn't mean to skip anybody's questions, just that these super chats are only up here for a certain amount of time. And, you know, I can only read and sort of do so many. I apologize. You know, that I didn't get to every single super chat, you know, but it is like kind of a bit of a dog pile here. It is a bit of a competition. Everybody's sort of like, ga, 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 ga. So, you know, again, I do apologize for not getting to every single question. And, you know, I think, I'm going to leave it at that, guys. You know, I'm just sort of William Gallimore says, I like your head. I appreciate it. How much did I donate? How many words do I get to something, something, something? I'm sort of like scrolling through these super chats over here right now. Thoughts on jam bands? Never really been into jam bands all that much, honestly. I have not tried the new Liar single yet. I retweeted it, but I'm going to be giving it a shot in time for the new, you know, Best Worst Tracks video very soon. Favorite David Bowie album era, you know, probably, you know, the whole glam era, obviously, Ziggy Stardust era, you know, Aladdin Sane era. I am into some ska, you know, like Operation Ivy, Real Big Fish is kind of fun. Obviously the specials, all the old school stuff, like the Trojan Records stuff is all fantastic. But there's like a lot of third wave ska that I'm just kind of like, kind of suspect of, not really that crazy about. Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm sorry I didn't get to every single super chat here, guys. Again, I do sort of appreciate the support, and I do appreciate you guys supporting the segment. And, oh, yeah, Guten says, Little Yachty will be remembered in 50 years. Probably true. Probably true. Little Yachty will be remembered in 50 years. For sure, without question. And I'm going to leave it at that, guys. I'm going to go watch or sort of catch up or finish this new season of Orange is the New Black. If there's something that I wish I could sort of do a review on and people care, it's Orange is the New Black. I love you. I hope you're doing well. I will be doing another live stream. Let's see, not next week, but the week after. So, you know, I'm trying to do these live streams every other week. So, you know, be here Thursday night. We'll do another live stream. Hopefully, you know, I can get to your question. If I missed it this time, I apologize. And, you know, that's going to be it. You know, appreciate you guys. You're the best. I will see you guys in the next live stream. And, you know, you'll catch a couple quickie videos tomorrow. There should be my favorite albums of 2017 so far video out Saturday. And, of course, on Sunday, I will be hitting you guys with a brand new video over on the freaking the best and worst tracks videos is what I'm thinking of. But finally, my second channel, my rant channel that I started not too long ago, is linked down there in the description. Go follow that channel. I'm hitting you guys with all sorts of content on there. I'm going to be talking about Jay-Z's new album on there really quick, kind of the promotion and the rollout of that record really quick. And I guess this week you can expect a Jay-Z review. I have to get a Tidal subscription or get something going so I can hear it. But there will be a Jay-Z review coming out very soon, hopefully. And, you know, I will be talking about Tyler, the Creator's new track in the best and worst video. All right, I will see you guys very soon. Hope you're doing well. You're the best. Love you, love you, love you. Bye.